Okay, the time is now 3:30. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Rules, Enactments, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. Everyone, please silence your electronic devices and join me for pledge to the flag. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lorraine, can we have roll call, please?
Kimo?
Here.
Cheney?
Here.
Fagion?
Here.
Hines?
Here.
Paduk?
Here.
Sierra? Sutherland? Here, Skevich.
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you. All right, first up, we have Louise Vandermark, Commissioner of Elections, Courtney Canfield Green, Commissioner of Elections. A, request to accept and appropriate an allocation of $97,948.19 from the state of New York for the reimbursement of eligible operating costs related to the general election held in November 2024. Eligible operating costs include, but are not limited to, expenses related to the running of a general election, such as temporary staff, full site supplies, election equipment, and public awareness campaigns. Legislative request number 241, got motion second. Fagion and Duke. Okay, the floor is yours, ladies.
Okay. Thank you for having us here today. The first grant that we're asking for the county to approve and accept, this money will help offset some of the extra costs we had this year with the election. It will reimburse things that we've already had to spend on. You know, we had to bring in extra per diem workers because of the volume. We received over 25,000 absentee applications, and which was too much for our staff to handle by themselves with, everything, else going on. So that'll help offset that. It'll help offset the extra cost of extra supplies we had to get at the last moment, with the volume that was coming in. All of a sudden, we never had trouble with our toners before in our printers. All of a sudden, during early voting, toners were going. And we had to replace toners, and we had to get, expedited shipment of toners in. So, it'll help cover costs like that, and it'll reimburse the county, which is a great thing when we can bring money into the county. So that's what that's for.
Do you have an idea of the cost as compared to the last general election?
Yeah, we're still
Still
trying.
working.
Still working on it.
We're still doing 11-hour days.
We will give you a full report in probably 2 months. We'll have it all for you.
Okay.
It'll come.
Any other questions, comments?
How's that number?
Oh, yes, they have like a certain amount. Like
There's
this.
a chart along with our legislative request. The state did it based on registered voters, and that's how they distribute it throughout the whole
Based on
state.
registered voters?
Yes.
Okay, I see the
Give
chart.
me the percentage, of
Okay,
the
so it's
amount.
all percentage actually.
Right, they usually do like a base of $5,000 or $10,000
Okay,
and then add on to it from there.
Okay, any other questions? Here none, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Next up, B, request to accept and appropriate an allocation of $292,719.30 from the state of New York for the reimbursement of eligible costs related to the purchase of electronic poll books. The current poll books are reaching end of life, and this grant would be for actual expenses related to electronic poll books, e-poll books, and associated software. Legislative request number 242. Can I get a motion in a second?
I make a motion. Second.
Fagion, Paduk. Okay, once again, the floor is yours.
Let me get on you. You take this
We
one.
take turns. We are in the anticipation that we will have to restock our fleet of electronic poll books. Those are the iPads that we use, the voters sign in on. That's the number 2 that the state has granted us for reimbursement on those purposes for 2025 going forward, and also printers. We do anticipate at this time, we'll just let you know, we do expect that to probably go past that number, just based on what the need is in the county and how it's been going. That's what that's for.
How old are those poll books?
I'm
How
sorry,
long have you been using poll books?
2020.
Okay.
We did a full rollout of on-demand ballot printing. We were the first folks in the whole state to do that. to save us money on the printing aspect, we did that. So 2020, our equipment's been going full speed ahead.
Other question? Legislator King?
So does all of it need to be replaced, or are we just replacing a part of what we have?
We will be replacing probably all of them based on the upgrades to the iOS system and the Apple system, and the state has certain requirements they request for the eProBooks to do their testing and different things that they do. So they have, when you do an upgrade on an Apple device, some of their parameters that they have will not go through with just an upgrade on iOS. So that's going to require a new, like you have a new iPhone, the iPhone 15, iPhone 16, it would be an upgrade to a new iPad to keep the level of security that needs to happen on a new ProBook.
So should we be anticipating that every 4 or 5 years, we're gonna have to replace everything?
Okay.
It's up to Apple. It's,
It's out of our
it
hands.
could. I don't have an answer to that right now. We didn't anticipate this. The state just told us that, and the state legislature granted us money to reimburse us for that.
And what percentage of the cost will this cover?
We don't know what our cost will be for 2025. We don't have our new costs yet. This is just what the state allocated us right now.
I realize that, but is that gonna cover the cost?
We
of
know
doing what we
in
need to do?
2020, it cost about 285,000, Yeah.
287.
287,000.
And
We have other grant money
We-
too, we plan on using towards it.
the,
That's already approved.
okay. So the population's been increasing, so that's
Yes.
gonna mean we're gonna need more poll books
Absolutely.
each time we do
Absolutely.
these orders. Is that covered under the state funding? If we have to buy more? Courtney's not saying anything and Louise is shaking her head no.
This is what they've given us right now. We don't know what we're gonna need until, the state has to give us our information. Louise and I will squeak by with what we have. If we can push it another year, absolutely, we'll try to do that. We've been doing, that's not a problem. But,
We also want to
we
avoid problems at the
anticipate-
polls.
right, but we anticipate that there's a statewide need to upgrade your e-poll books
Great.
to whatever latest iOS they're requesting.
Okay.
And they said it's an Apple thing.
It's, yes,
Not even.
They say they're blaming
It's
it on
Apple.
us.
It's
Yes.
Apple because Apple won't let you do certain updates to
it's security
security,
issues
yeah.
within the Apple device.
We got Minority Leader Duke and then legislator.
Sort of along the same lines, it's amazing they can't be upgraded, we have to buy new ones, just like taking them, throwing them in the garbage.
That's what they tell us.
It's crazy.
We're gonna,
Is that what they
make
told us
sure-
they would last that long?
no one told us
No one told us anything.
Oh.
No one told us anything.
that we were just hit with this.
I would liken it to your Apple device. If you have a phone and you can only run so many updates on your phone before it has to do, you have to buy a new phone for it to do something further than, something more than you need it to. That's same thing with the iPads.
When it has software, right, I mean, the software that comes with it, you can't just update software, you gotta buy a whole.
We do iOS updates, we do app updates, we
Yeah.
do all that. But then the state has requirements within those updates and security issues that they approve and not approve. And we always have to be on the latest and greatest, whatever the most secure system is, that the state passes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the state board we're talking about.
Legislator Nemo.
I just want to follow up and let us changes the point. I mean, we should be able, we know where population's going. My district, it's a big issue. You and I talked about it last time, poll books. We need to kind of go into the year, I don't think knowing what the population projection numbers are, how many more registered voters are come out. If you say, well, I don't know, we'll do whatever we can to make it work, can cause problems with the polls, and I just don't want to make sure
Well,
we think about it.
we
I don't
always
have to
throw
like
in
tell you,
extra.
we
Well,
got
no, we always purchase extra. We had more than enough, this time.
this. Okay.
We do that. We always
We
anticipate
deployed
that.
more when we saw a need,
Yeah,
extra
okay.
in different
That's what I'm
sites.
saying, yeah.
But
I
then there are,
thought I had to come back and say, okay, this is the problem.
We don't have our numbers right now of what we're going to need because we don't have costs or anything right now.
Which are working.
We don't, not until the vendor gives us costs.
Okay.
not until we
But
finish
what
this
was the
election.
percentage? And how many people need to be registered?
We know we want 400 e-poll books right now for that's what our intent to purchase is, but I have no idea how much that will cost at this time. Right now, we have 350.
I guess my question, I'm not an expert, so I'm kind of struggling through this. You know, do we know that if that extra 50 poll books are gonna match what the census in Orange County is gonna look like? That registered voter is gonna wanna go to the polls, and the demand that's gonna be.
But you know, Ms.
If
Amos,
not, what do we do? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, what do we do to help?
I have to tell you, we exceed the minimum requirements that the state gives us.
Yes, I understand.
You know, the state says for 1,000 voters, you need an e-poll book. Well, we throw an extra. We do that with machines, we do that with boots, we do that with all our equipment. We don't stay to the minimum. So please rest assured, we will make sure. That's why when people come to us and say, oh, you didn't have enough. Well, you know what? We gave you 3 more than you were required to send you. You know, and we do that just to please, you know, and to make it a better voting experience. So we will make sure there are enough poll books in each site, so each voter has the best experience we can possibly give them.
As a county executive, I know we'll take that to the bank.
You can.
Okay, majority leader, Jim.
Thanks, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Quick question. What do you do with the old ones?
We don't know yet. We haven't even thought about it.
And is it a security factor with those old ones? Is there data and information on there that we make sure that's secure?
It's like the old voting machines. The motherboard has to.
I don't, with all due respect, I think it's a lot different than an old voting
No,
machine.
but it's the
There's
same
people's information
thing. There
on
are
it.
security things to get rid of.
Yes.
We have not been given guidelines
Okay.
yet.
If you can, in the updates, keep us updated on the old ones as well. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Hearing none, call the question, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, C, we have request to accept and appropriate an allocation of $152,162.83 from the state of New York for the reimbursement of costs related to providing prepaid return postage and outgoing postage on absentee ballots and applications and early voting by mail ballots and applications as enacted by Chapter 481 of laws of 2023, legislative request number 243, and motion second, please. Fagion? Paduk? Okay, floor is yours.
This money will come to good use. Now, whenever we send out something to a voter, a registration or an absentee ballot application, we have to do the return postage. We have to send an envelope. You know, so we have a BMR account at the post office that when it comes back, all the money comes from. We also have to do for absentee ballots. If someone requests an absentee ballot, we send it out. We have to send a postage paid envelope for them to mail their ballot back, so it doesn't cost the voter money. So it's costing us a lot, the new envelopes. So it's something we would appreciate. It'll be great savings.
Okay, minority leader, Paduk.
Did you submit that number, or that's just the amount they came up with?
That's the number they gave us.
These are all the
How much
numbers the
it cost-
state.
it cost us this year?
I know at the end, we kept throwing $10,000 at a time because we were out of money in our postage. In our BMR account, I will tell you that. I can't tell you the exact amount because
We don't have our election numbers.
everything was crazy. We kept
You
doing,
think this will cover all, I mean, it's got.
yes,
For 2024, yeah.
yes.
You good? Yep. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question, all in favor, aye? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
We'll come back in a couple months and give you a
Okay,
big,
yeah, I know you're busy.
nice
so-
report. Okay.
Bye.
All right, next up, we have Damian Brady, Administrator, Office of Assigned Counsel. Request to accept and appropriate grant funds in the amount of $913,144 from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. The funds are to be used to support public defense services and expenses incurred by government and not-for-profit entities. The Office of Assigned Counsel's portion will be $287,455.33. And the Legal Aid Society's portion will be $625,688.67. The expenses will include computer software programming, computer equipment, legal fees, books and subscriptions, licenses, software, and consultant services. Legislative request number 252. Could I get one second? Fagion and Sutherland. Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to this Aid to Defense supplemental grant, New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services, just a little bit of history. This is a supplemental grant to an existing Aid to Defense grant, which was only $16,926, which the county has been receiving for years. That money has gone exclusively to the Legal Aid Society in the past. The state in June provided us information that they were going to augment that grant by a significant sum, by $913,000. And that the instructions were to split the funding between respective defense agencies based on criminal cases handled or some metric that we could agree upon. So we spoke with the Orange County Legal Aid Society, had a conversation, went through our numbers and came up with a split of 2/3 to the Orange County Legal Aid Society and 1/3 to the Office of Assigned Counsel, based on the review of those numbers. And that would generally turn out to be a 2/3 split, meaning about $608,000 to Legal Aid Society and $304,000 to the Orange County Office of Assigned Counsel. And what you noticed is that number doesn't match that, and that's because the Legal Aid Society had not received their funding, the original $16,926 for 2024. So we subtracted that $17,000 roughly from our total and then added to the legal aid total. So that's why you see a differential in those numbers from the 2/3, 1/3 split. The funding in this case from Department of Criminal Justice Services actually already been received by the Finance Department. It's a direct funding grant, so it's not a reimbursement grant like our New York State Aging Legal Services funds, which fund most of our other operations. For our purposes, plans are to purchase a new computer to interface with the digital courtrooms, associated software, additional funding for electronic batch entry system program, AV equipment for our CLE presentations, research books for 18B panel members, and we're looking to potential hire an AV-IT consultant for discovery issues and audiovisual issues and trial preparation. The Legal Aid Society is doing something similar with their funding, and they're also looking at augmenting salaries, which is permissible for, and creating additional positions. So that's all I have with respect to legislative request 252.
Okay, questions? Minority Report.
Thank you. Does this money, you have money in your budget for all these things as well, right? Subscriptions, licenses, books?
Correct.
In your budget, is this gonna,
This is an augment to that. That's not it's not considered a supplanting because they're two separate grant funds. So we're going to be utilizing essentially it's going to allow us to just to do more for the books and subscriptions.
I mean, your grant, this grant is gonna actually cover what you have in your budget, really? It seems like it would.
Correct, absolutely. It would cover everything. We've built it out not completely specifically, but to the point where we know we're spending almost all of the grant funding.
So we could have eliminated all that from your budget.
No, not necessarily, because that's actually not part of my budget. My county taxation budget is really, keeping it simple, is almost all payments for attorneys. Meaning the 18B actual cost for the lawyers at $158 an hour. The other money that we have for books and subscriptions is funded by the reimbursable Earl Herring grant. So it's really just augmenting existing grant resources and not necessarily replacing anything on the county taxation side. The one thing that these grants are not allowed to use very specifically, which we received notice from the Department of Criminal Justice Services, we can't use it for 18B funds because they already have a reimbursement program in part, because we get about 25% back of every $158 we spend already.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up, B, request to accept and appropriate grant funds in the amount of $913,144 from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. The funds are to be used to support public defense services and expenses related to discovery reform implementation, including but not limited to digital evidence transmission technology, administrative support, computers, hardware, software, data connectivity, development of training materials, staff training, additional personnel, or increased compensation to reflect additional responsibilities related to discovery, overtime costs, and litigation readiness. The Office of Assigned Counsel's portion will be $304,381.33. And the Legal Aid Society's portion will be $608,762.67. The expenses will include computer equipment, book subscriptions, and licenses for software. Legislative request number 253. Could I get a motion in a second? Fagione and so, okay, floor is yours.
Thank you. So this grant is for an identical amount of money, $913,000, and this is actually, but however, a brand new grant. So this is to augment expenses related to criminal discovery reform, which began in 2020, has been updated once in 2020 and once in 21 and once in 22. This grant, as you said, is going to cover different things, but it's limited to for discovery reform purposes only. So the example would be if you were going to create a position, like say in a criminal attorney position, that position would have to be dedicated to criminal discovery reform matters only, or to the extent that you were going to only make it in part, you could only fund it in part. So you would have an attorney, say 50% funded by the supplemental grant and 50% funded by the discovery reform grant. So the way that we kind of described it is that everything that is discovery reform could be supplemental, but everything that's supplemental can't necessarily be discovery reform. The grants are 2/3, 1/3. Just as we talked about earlier, there is no offset in this particular one. And our plans for the discovery grant, including purchase external hard drives and thumb drives for panel members, which is something which is a constant expense, which is currently picked up by our county taxation and reimbursements, cloud computing space, specialized discovery software for downloading and editing video and audio, and which creates transcripts. It's a new dynamic program, which is significantly expensive, which we're going to use in part for that. Legal Aid Society's plan is for a significant amount of cloud storage for their office and a creation of discovery compliance attorney along with an associated support staff to unpack complex cases. And they're also interested in utilizing the same software that we have. That's all I have for this one.
Questions? All right, hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, C, request supplemental appropriation to increase the 2024 state aid revenue portion of the operating budget for the Legal Aid Society by $168,287 from $828,069 to $996,356 with no impact to county taxation. Currently, Orange County Legal Aid Society receives grant funding from the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services, including funds from the Harrell Herring statewide grant, as well as 3 active distribution grants in 2024. The distribution grant funding is being utilized more than previously anticipated, but still within the grant limits, which has increased the state aid revenue as well as expenses, including salaries and benefits. The increase in state aid revenue requested will be reimbursed by the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services. Legislative request number 256. Any motion second, please. Fagione and Cheney. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there are 3 active distribution grants with the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services. They currently support 5 full-time attorney positions and 2 secretarial positions in the Legal Aid Society. Each of these grants are 3-year periods, and they're with staggered end dates. So essentially, every year we have a renewal. Funding support for the distribution grants began in approximately 2013 and has been used continuously and exclusively by the Legal Aid Society since that date. Right now, we have 3 grants where they're eventually going to merge them into 1 grant in 2027, which will make the management a little bit easier. But as stated in our legislative request, the additional funding in the amount of $168,287 is necessary because LAS, Legal Aid Society, is using the grants more heavily, but still within the grant limits. And all funds that are going to be appropriated are ultimately going to be reimbursed dollar for dollar by the state of New York.
Okay, questions, comments? Hear none, call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Okay, next up, we have Alan Sorensen, Commissioner of Planning, and Stacy Butler, Deputy Commissioner of Planning. You join us at the table. First up, A, request to accept and appropriate funds received through the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Program and to authorize the county executive to execute any contracts and documents required. The planning department will receive grants from NYSERDA, which works on a point basis, and at certain levels of points, funds are awarded. These are pre-approved project types and items that may be purchased with the awarded funds. These funds are available to departments other than planning, DPW, Parks, General Services, Valley View, et cetera. There is currently one approved project for the amount of $22,500. A new planning project needs to be created. There is no local match required from the county. Legislative request number 258. Motion second, please.
So moved.
Cheney, Faggio. Okay, floor is yours, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So the Clean Energy Communities program, the goal of the funding is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and fossil fuels. So NYSERDA is looking for projects where we purchase equipment to replace gas and diesel powered equipment. So what we've been working closely with the Parks Department, also with DPW, to identify those specific areas where it makes sense to purchase battery powered equipment. So like with the parks, there's some good equipment there that they're looking to purchase electric landscaping equipment that is actually pretty effective. So that's what we're looking at purchasing this through this first round. Other things that we can fund through this program include heat pump installations, solar installations that are owned by the county. So we're currently coordinating with our sister agencies to see where there might be a fit for that additional equipment. So this resolution is just for the first part of this, and we're just asking for your approval of this resolution so that we can proceed with the purchase of our first approved project.
Questions, comments? And none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, B, we have Orange County is planning the design and construction of a pedestrian and bicycle trail along an unused 10-mile, 101-acre section of the former Erie River right-of-way in Orange County. It starts in the town of Cornwall at the Moodna Trestle, then heading south traverses the town of Blooming Grove, village of Washingtonville, and ends in the town/village of Chester. It is requested that the legislature find that the construction of the Scunnamunk Rail Trail will not have any significant adverse environmental impacts and issue a secret negative determination. Legislative request number 261. Motion is second.
Motion.
Hines and Faggio. Okay, floor is yours.
So we have provided, planning department prepared seeker documentation for the legislators review. We've prepared a part 1 full environmental assessment form, a draft of the part 2 environmental assessment form, and a part 3 environmental assessment form for the project. And the focus of that environmental review is the development of the 10-mile rail trail within the right-of-way that the county recently purchased. We have funding in place already for the project. We also, prior to the seeker review, we went through a NEPA review, the National Environmental Protection Act review. We received what they call a categorical exclusion. So in effect, the NEPA finding was very similar to a seeker neg deck. So it was a finding of no adverse impact. We relied heavily on the documentation that was prepared for the NEPA review to supplement our seeker review. And the next steps in the process after this seeker neg deck, we'll be proceeding with a RFQ, request for qualifications, to retain a design consultant to work on the detailed design of the Scunnamunk Rail Trail. And that will be happening within the next couple of weeks. And then we have a year-long process ahead of us of getting into the detailed design of the rail trail. So the documentation that was provided to the legislature forms the basis to justify the secret egg deck. And it's our opinion that and request that the legislature issues comes with a finding of no adverse impact and that issue a secret negative declaration.
Okay, questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, request to authorize the acquisition of an undivided interest in a conservation easement concerning the Morchesky Farm in the town of Warwick, stating the estimated maximum cost thereof is $272,569, not to exceed 25% of the project cost, and appropriating said amount to the 2024 Orange County Open Space Fund to the cost thereof. A public hearing would be held under NYSGML 247 regarding the acquisition of a conservation easement over the Morchesky Farm in the town of Warwick. The county will hold the easement with the state of New York. Legislative request number 272. Motion is second, please.
So moved.
Cheney and Fagion. Okay, floor is yours.
Okay, so the Morchesky Farm has been in the family since the 1920s. What this will do is purchase the development rights on the farm so that the farm can remain in the family's ownership, enable the family to obtain some equity out of the farm through the purchase of the development rights and continue to farm the property. They currently operate a small livestock operation that raises beef cows, and it's area of the town of Warwick where there are surrounding farms. So this particular farm consists of 166 acres. In a very near vicinity, there's an additional over 300 acres of land, 325 acres of preserved land within a mile of the farm. So we have a critical mass of farmland, which is something that, is recommended that a goal that we strive to achieve in the protection of farmland. So through the county's open space fund, the first round of applications were due September 13th. We received 2 applications, one of which is the Morchesky Farm, which the review committee recommended funding. We had a second application from the village of Watsonville that was ineligible. They missed the mark in terms of what the eligibility requirements were. I've already spoken to the mayor regarding that application. But this particular application has gone through the planning board and the review committee with a recommendation to fund this project. And so the next steps are, as the resolution states, would be to set the public hearing and to authorize the funding for this project.
Okay, any questions, discussion? Legislator Hines?
Yeah, what's the end game? What if the family decides to sell the property in the future? How does that affect us?
The covenants and restrictions run with the land. So if they were to sell it, the new buyer could not develop the farm. The same restrictions would apply. Our goal would be that if the farm were sold at some point in the future, that it would be sold to another farmer. One advantage of purchasing the development rights is it would lower the acquisition cost for any farmer who would be interested in continuing on. Typically what happens in these situations is the farms are left to the next generation, so it allows the parents to get some equity out of the property as well and pursue their retirement plans. But the restrictions do run with the land.
Are they allowed to build additional structures on the property without our approval?
They can, there are limitations. They can do farm structures, but all of that will be spelled out in the conservation easement in terms of what they can do. And so there are limitations. And the county retains that, the undivided interest in the conservation easement.
We don't own the property at all.
We do not. We will have a contract, which we have on other farms in the county that have conservation easements with the Orange County Land Trust. So there's an annual monitoring of those conservation easements that involves actually a member of the Orange County Land Trust going out to the properties, inspecting the properties, making sure that there's full compliance with the conservation easement.
Okay, other questions? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up, D, request supplemental appropriation of $1 million for open space. Legislative request number 273. Motion and second, please. Fagion and Sheehan. Okay, floor is yours.
Okay, so I believe it was July of this year, the legislature authorized $1 million in the capital budget for the open space fund. And that was approved. What I didn't understand at that time was I needed to have an attachment A, so that's what this is, actually creating the capital account, I believe is the terminology. So that's the purpose of this resolution.
Okay, questions, comments? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Right, next up, we have Catherine Benelli, Chairwoman, Orange County Legislature, Laney Chapman, Commissioner of Human Services, to join us at the table. First up, we have local law, amending local law number 2 of 2020, fixing the compensation for legislators of the Orange County Legislature to be effective for the term commencing on January 1st, 2026. Motion and second, please. Fagion, Sheehan. Okay. What is yours, Chairman?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. What you have, did we want to do at PNC, this did pass PNC, and we did the discussion overall, and then we voted on this. Well, no, we voted on them separately, but we did just an overall discussion. So would that be okay with you as well?
As long as the committee's okay with that.
Just a brief overview.
Yep.
Obviously, all of you have had some input into what we're looking at this afternoon. I'll take you back to the summer when we started to look at the salary schedule for elected officials. This is the salary schedule starting for the next term in 2026. These are all fixed by local law. So back in the summer, I had some discussions as how we can proceed. So after those discussions, we put Ryan to work, and he gave us a very good report, including a historic review as well as a foundation and suggestions on how we move forward with this. So, and then after that, and I believe he came to this committee, and then after that, we did, on his suggestion, put a leadership group together that discussed this and took into consideration all of the recommendations. And then what you have before you is the product and the result of the discussions that took place. Both the minority leader and the majority leader were asked to go to their respective caucus members to get input from them. And that is what you see here this afternoon. So I'll kick it over to Langdon.
Sure. Yeah, I think the numbers speak for themselves here. You've obviously taken a number less than what I recommended, but I also think you've taken a significant step in moving closer to equity here of what you should be paid for the responsibility of being a director of your community. At the end of the day, it's always tough to make a salary for public officials, elected officials, and I respect that, but you've moved yourself up in a good direction here, and that's all I can say. I think the most important thing you've done is linked yourself to the future CSEA races, and hopefully not only for the next 4 years, but after that, your successors will follow. So you'll never see 8 years of zeros again, because if you do that, you're just not going to attract people to run for office the way you really should, is my respectful suggestion.
And I would like to take the opportunity to thank both the majority leader, the minority leader, and the Independence Party leader, as well as the Conservative Party leader, I suppose, again. They all worked very, very well. It was a very good collaborative effort. And I didn't know if Mr. Majority Leader, Mr. Fascio, did you want to say a few words?
I want to thank you and Commissioner for, getting the ball rolling on this in the summertime and bringing to us clear information and research and data. And I'll reiterate what I said on Monday. On Monday, we examined several desk audits that HR is responsible for, looking and creating reports and information on. And as so many times we do, we look at these desk audits and we accept the information presented to us from the professionals, and we make an affirmative vote on that. So in terms of what the HR commissioner has brought to us, appreciate the hard work and the noble effort on the information. We took what information you gave us. We worked in leadership, but also in our caucuses together to come up with a plan, a solution that can fix the salaries for now and into the future. So it was very good to work with you guys and for you guys to bring information to us and then to share the information amongst our colleagues here and to come up with a plan moving forward. So very happy to work with you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Minority Leader, you were an integral part of this as well. Did you want to say something? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I agree with Tom. You guys first came up with it was out of control. Second one was okay, but it wasn't good enough. This third one's a little better. I'm not sure my colleagues are going to support this either. The whole thing, I haven't really discussed it with all of them yet. But I think you did a good job on getting us to this point, so I'll support it.
Mr. Emo,
Yeah,
since you were part of the group as well.
my history in management and working is to listen to the data, work with it more closely and see what it's looking at. And I think Commissioner of HR gave us the most some professional presentation I've seen in a long time. There were decisions we can make here, anything we do. The numbers were there, they're comparable, they made sense. The data says that this is the kind of thing you want to do. As one person, only one person, I supported his idea. I thought that idea of the number he put out was the right number. I certainly don't think that my constituents would not re-elect me if they thought I was making that kind of money. So I don't have the same angst that I heard some of you have. That's not a problem. I think, on the other hand, I really think that in this area, if we take the person out of it, and Elaine just reminded us that, and think about the position, what I'm doing, what we're doing with this and what I would want to go for is say, I'm going to be able to create an opportunity for people who want to run from my position someday to be able to give my constituents the best qualified people out there that want to come and run for office in Orange County. And not just somebody that maybe can do it part-time in a job or they got a retirement or something. Can you really bring a better person to the table? And so I thought that was a really good idea. I'm a little perplexed on this one because I don't understand I'm not naive. I don't understand the differentiation when I heard sort of the comments about, constituents won't support it. It's a political issue. It's hard to get a raise. And on the other hand, we voted on this today, we're going to give 2 other elected officials a raise. A good raise to the clerk's office and the county exec's office. Both of them have to answer to the same constituents we answered. Apparently, it's not an issue for them, but they would have withdrawn it. We're told us not to put it there. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I got to think it. I may abstain this time, but I'd probably be a yes on the floor because I do respect what Mr. Chapman gave us, and I think we really made a mistake undercutting that recommendation. That's my opinion.
Okay, other comments, Legislator Sullivan?
So you think it should be the original recommendation?
Any other questions, comments? Okay, once again, I just want to thank Commissioner Chapman for all his work and analysis on this recommendation, and also the committee for all their work and getting back to the rest of the legislature. I think it was a very collaborative effort, and I think we got a very strong proposal for salaries for the next term, and also created a good template for future legislatures. So thank you all. With that, I will call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that was for aye. We have to do the rest of them. Aye.
One abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry, one abstention. I just lost my. I got it, okay. Double I, local law amending local law number 3 of 2020, fixing compensation for chairpersons of the statutory committees of the Orange County Legislature to be effective for the term commencing January 1st, 2026. Motion second.
I'll make that motion.
Fagion,
Second.
Cheney. Okay, all in favor?
This is for the legislature, right?
Committee chairs.
Statutory chair.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor, aye? Any opposed? Okay, so it's 8 ayes. All right, next up, local law amending local law number, I'm sorry, 7. Yep. No, wait. 7, yeah, 7. Okay, sorry. I can't count. Local law amending local law number 5 of 2020, fixing compensation for the majority and minority leaders of the Orange County Legislature to be effective for the term commencing January 1st, 2026. Can I get a motion and second, please?
I'll make that motion.
Fagion,
Second.
Cheney. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 7 ayes. Next up, local law amending local law number 7 of 2020, fixing compensation for the chairperson of the Orange County Legislature to be effective for the term commencing on January 1st, 2026. Can I have a motion second?
I'll make that motion.
Fagion, Cheney. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next up, we have local law, amending local law number 8 of 2020, fixing the compensation for the county clerk of Orange County to be effective for the term commencing on January 1st, 2026. Take a motion and a second, please.
I'll make that motion.
Fagion,
Second.
Cheney. Okay, discussion. All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, local law amending local law number 8 of 2020, fixing compensation for the, oh, I'm sorry, that was county clerk. Local law amending local law number 9 of 2020, fixing the compensation for the county executive of Orange County to be effective for the term commencing on January 1st, 2026. Motion and second, please.
I'll make that motion.
Fagion, Cheney. Any discussion, question? Hearing none, call question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, and last but not least, setting date for organization meeting, January 2nd, 2025, 3:30 PM. Snow date 1/3/2025, 3:30 PM. Can I have a motion second, please?
I'll make that motion.
Fagion and the Duke. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. With that, this is clear. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Duke and Cheney, all in favor?
Everybody.
Okay, thank you, everyone.